A warning now that survivors of sexual violence may find our next discussion disturbing. When she was 16, Thordis Elva was raped by a man she knew. The man she had at that point considered to be her boyfriend, Tom Stranger. The ordeal was 2 hours long and brutal. It left her physically damaged in the short term, mentally in pieces in the long. Her story is worryingly not that unusual. In 9 out of 10 cases of sexual assault, the perpetrator is known to the woman. In a majority of cases, it is a partner or an ex-partner. What is unusual, though, is what happened next. She got back in touch with her rapist some 8 years later and began an exchange of emails with him to understand what had motivated the violence and what effect it had had on each of them. Eventually, they decided to come face to face. She travelled from Iceland, her home, he from Australia, his, and they met in Cape Town, where they spent a week together. They wrote a book to chart what they learned, called South of Forgiveness, and they're both with me here. Thank you very much for coming in. Thordis, why did you get back in touch after something so excruciatingly painful?
Well, it was something that I kind of had to do. First thing I did was to try and shut down my pain. I didn't recognize what had happened to me for what it was, because I had this misconception as a 16-year-old kid that rape was something that happened when a knife-wielding, armed lunatic would jump out of a bush, basically, and attack you, because I was under these impressions from the media, which, you know, over-report on those types of crimes, when in actuality it is, as you say, so often your boyfriend or someone that you know. So I tried to just shut down this pain and became a very effective overachiever. I filled my schedule around the clock because standing still offered too much reflection on the past, which was too painful. But despite me projecting the successful image to the outside, I was very much hurting in private, and I was numbing my pain with alcohol, with self-harm, with eating disorders. And I hit rock bottom at the age of 25, and I'd long given up the hope that I would get any legal justice because I didn't press charges right away, and my perpetrator had moved to the other side of the planet. So I needed, nonetheless, to have him take responsibility for his actions.
And you made that move by writing to him an email.
Yeah, and I didn't have high hopes in what it would result in, but I needed to do it for me.
And Tom, you responded to that email straight away with an apology. Do you see yourself as a rapist? Do you call yourself a rapist?
There is an internal recognition, absolutely, that what I did was nothing, excuse me, other than rape. It's been a long process of me understanding the gravity of my actions and the damages that I've caused. And as much as I've come to understand, there was a sense of entitlement and a deservingness where I sanctioned my own needs over the top of any understanding or anything for Thordis' well-being.
When you raped Thordis, you're talking about the moment she was unconscious or barely conscious. Mm-hmm. And what, I mean, that's the question, what made you do it?
Yeah, I haven't found any intent to hurt Thordis. There was not a maliciousness in trying to re-inhabit my 18-year-old self that night. From what I've found, there was an attitude where when a boy goes out partying with his girlfriend, he's entitled to sex. And of course it wasn't sex, and I took that attitude to a very dark place. In being involved in this, I understand that this is a pervasive issue and it's happening behind closed doors. And I would like to not be complicit in the continuation of that. And
because you were the one that reached out to Tom via email. I mean, the idea that as a rape victim, an email from the perpetrator might pop up in your inbox is kind of horrific, right? If it had happened the other way round, what would your reaction have been?
Oh, I don't know, because that's not how things unfolded. And just to make it clear, we're not putting this forth as a formula that people should be contacting one another whatsoever. That's absolutely not what we're suggesting. We're just offering our story in the hope that it will do a number of things. One is to shift the focus from the survivor whose attire, whose behavior has long been subject to scrutiny, which contributes to this victim-blaming culture, and shift that focus rather onto the perpetrator where the responsibility lies. And we're also hoping to to dismantle the monster myth that it is, as I said before, this unknown armed assailant, because the monster myth hurts survivors. It makes it less likely that they will be believed when they come forth with their stories if their perpetrator does not conform to that misconception, which very few actually do. So those are our hopes and what this could potentially achieve, this conversation that we're offering.
And you call this a conversation or the offering of a story. There will be people watching this, I'm sure, who just say, you should be in jail. You shouldn't be getting any publicity or any reward, monetary or otherwise, from this. And you shouldn't be encouraging this sort of sanitization of a crime.
Yeah. And to that I say, we live in a world where sexual violence is normalized and dismissed as locker room talk, where it's not only a pervasive problem, but victim blaming is also very visible in all of this. And those are things that I want to challenge, because if a perpetrator steps forth and acknowledges not only the hurt he caused, but underlines the need for responsibility to be taken so much more often. I mean, it should be taken in every single case. But that, in my mind, is not sanitization or normalization. It is the antidote to normalization. It's saying this hurts and we need to make it stop.
And you're prepared to now go through life, Tom, talking to people and saying, I have raped, I'm a rapist, I need forgiveness. I mean, that's what you've carved out for yourself doing this, is it? Or?
Yeah, it's a case of, I certainly recognise that I'm being offered some very reputable and respected platforms, even being here tonight talking about it. I don't seek to benefit my profile nor bank balance, and I should just specify that any proceeds from this book are going to charity, so I won't be profiting from this book in any way. I'm not seeking to ask forgiveness in the future or any kind of kind light from the public reception of this story. I have already been involved in conversation with men and have seen an investment and a want to discuss this issue. And if there is a background position for me to continue being involved in those discussions, I can't expect that. But if that is available, I would certainly be invested in being in those rooms and discussions.
I mean, one question that comes, I know that the Women's Festival decided to move your talk. They thought it wasn't a suitable platform to have you there. I mean, in a sense, why would you approach women's festivals or groups when surely you want to be talking to, men's clubs, going around Australia and having this conversation? Are you doing that?
There's uncertainty in the future, to be honest. I'm not entirely sure. One of the things that Thordis spoke to in the TED Talk was released is when it was released was the way that it's framed as a women's issue. I have no right to demand much in this, but it's a case of I am pleased that we still get a chance to speak outside of the Women of the World Festival. I'm very grateful for that, and the fact we still get to speak to a London audience.
And you've explained that you want to sort of demythologise this whole idea of the monster with the knife in rape, and you're very honest in the book. And one of the things you raise is when you meet in Cape Town, there is an attraction that comes back between you. I mean, this is properly sort of taboo stuff to say, I felt an attraction to the man who raped me.
Well, it wasn't an attraction, more so than an acknowledgement that what we had wasn't just that one night, and that's where personal relationships, when violence comes into that dynamic, where it gets confusing and messy. But I identified him when I saw him as someone that had, yes, caused me immeasurable pain, but it was also someone that I'd had happier moments with. But it was a fleeting sort of recognition that I had to make, because it wasn't a simple history.
Do you see yourself as friends now? Is this a friendship that you offer?
Absolutely not. We see ourselves as collaborators on a project that, yes, is very much focused on our personal history, but extends well beyond us, because unfortunately this is a problem that touches the lives of so many people.
Would you still jail Tom if you could now, if the statute of limitations hadn't run out? Would you want to treat this as
the statute of limitations has run out for a long, long time ago now. Would I still jail him? I think that what we've done now is worked to the bottom of a very hurtful and painful history. And I think that it's resulted in an understanding that I'm not sure if an incarceration would add much to, but I'm very much in favor of the criminal legal system. And I very much want to make it clear that I'm not preaching impunity in any way, but I'm one of the millions of people whose case fell through those cracks because I didn't react immediately. And when I did understand what had happened to me, it wasn't an option that was fruitful in any way. But I think that what we're doing now is of value, and I think it could contribute to meaningful change, and that is my wildest hope.
Thank you both very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Emma.
If you have been affected by any of the issues we've been discussing, details of organisations offering information and support with sexual abuse are available bbc.co.uk/actionline, or you can call for free at any time to hear recorded information on 0800 077 077. We'll put those numbers on our Newsnight Twitter feed if you want to find them later.